Columbia University has begun suspending the communist anti-Israel protesters. And I say communist because that really is the core issue. And I know a lot of people who are critical of Israel are going to push back on that. But if you take a look at what they're doing with the occupation, with the People's Library and welcome to the People's University, it's just an Occupy-style leftist protest. This time the backdrop is Israel. And, I certainly think there are anti-Israel sentiments, and as I often say, you're allowed to criticize them. But this is just flavor of the month leftist occupation protest, and they've got a cause to stand behind. So we'll talk about that. Plus, really interesting. The Biden administration is accusing Israel of human rights violations, which could put military aid or any foreign aid on hold based on something called Leahy laws. But we'll see if they actually do that. Why they're doing it. Hard to know for sure. But according to Gallup and Pew, support for Israel is dramatically down among Democrats, which means, I guess, the deep state back in the Biden horse means they're officially not supporting Israel anymore, or I have no idea. There are Democrats that are signing this call to ban what they're calling anti-Jewish protests. And it's like, well, look, man, the protests are general leftist. There are people who are singling out Jewish people. We'll pull up a video. I'll show you one. But the backdrop is anti-Israel, so I can see how this starts to get muddy. We'll talk about that. Plus, according to Politico, having babies is now far right. Yep, that's true. Yep, I don't get it either. But we'll talk about that. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to buy coffee. It's our coffee. We sponsor ourselves. When you buy Cast Brew coffee at castbrew.com, you're helping support our physical location, currently under construction in Martinsburg, West Virginia, where we're planning on having monthly live shows just for the members of our members of Timcast.com. They won't be announced to the public. You'll get an email if you're a member, so you'll know when those are taking place. Check out Appalachian Nights. It's everyone's favorite. Rise with Roberto Jr. and Stand Your Grounds. And support the show by buying our coffee. But also head over to Timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you keep the lights on. This whole show exists because we have members at Timcast.com. And I mean that 100% literally. We do not rely for the we get advertising revenue for sure, but this show only exists because you guys are members. So if you want to hang out with like-minded individuals in the Discord server, network, share ideas, and check out the pre-shows and after shows, go to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member, and you'll also get access to our uncensored members-only call-in show, which takes place Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m., just after Timcast IRL is live. You don't want to miss them. They're really fun. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, Kingsley Wilson.
Yeah, great to be with you guys tonight. My name is Kingsley Wilson. I'm a Trump campaign alum, currently do digital media in D.C. at the Center for Renewing America, and I'm also National Committee Woman for the D.C. Young Republicans.
Well, right on. Thanks for hanging out. Phil's here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I am the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Hannah Claire, how are you?
I'm good. It's fun to see you. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlaw. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. I'm glad to be back. Serge is here.
Yo, let's get started, Tim.
Here we go. We got the big news here from the New York Times. Columbia begins suspending student protesters. University officials gave the pro-Palestinian demonstrators a 2 p.m. deadline and threatened to suspend them if they did not leave. But I'd like you to take a look at this image. And what do you see? The People's Library. Oh, wow. Welcome to the People's University of Palestine. All right, look. It's very obvious to anybody who knows anything about these protests. They don't care about Israel. They care about flavor of the month, cause of the month. And as I've often described, when it comes to wokeness, there is no underlying moral ideology other than what we are is moral, period. If the hive decides Palestine is the issue, then the hive flocks to Palestine. All of a sudden, nobody cares about China. Nobody cares about, the Uyghur Muslims. Nobody cares about Sudan. Nobody cares about Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan. It all just becomes Israel. And of course, we had George Floyd. It all just becomes Black Lives Matter. It all becomes trans rights. This is just another outpouring of young, blanket, woke leftism with no real cause. However, it does end up focusing on Israel, which pisses off the U.S. government and their foreign policy. And you end up with, we got these weird calls from Democrats to shut down what they're calling anti-Jewish protests. And it definitely seems like a stretch, like the only way they can deal with this is to accuse them of being anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish. And while it is fair to say there certainly are instances of anti-Semitism, which I will show you in a video. We have another instance. This is just general wokeness. It's general leftism. And I suppose the issue is, to kick it off, young people are on TikTok. TikTok was telling them, trans rights and feminism and Black Lives Matter. And the deep state and the Democrats really were totally fine with it. Republicans wanted to ban it. Then when it turns anti-Israel, and now wokeness has just like mindless zombies marched into the Israel argument, now all of a sudden TikTok's got to go. But I think that just shows, as we saw in that video of that young woman, when you go to these protests and ask, what are you protesting? They're like, I have no idea.
No, I think there is sort of a hive mind mentality. It's the buzzword, right? This is a trendy thing. I mean, I think these people picture themselves as saying to their grandchildren, well, when I was in college, we demonstrated for Gaza. Like that will be some badge of honor. It's the way that feminists in the past said, when I was in college, I, protested so that I could wear pants to class or whatever. Like it is the cause of the generation, right? It's trendy right now. But I don't know that any of them are as deeply committed as they think they might be. And I think that's why you would get these clips of people saying, the group that's leading a lot of this is called Divest Apartheid, and no one knows what that means. No one knows what they're talking about. Divest Apartheid? They're just like, we don't want you to spend money on this anymore. None of these students have an action plan. No one has a set of demands.
I'll break down for you. Some kids are hanging out of college, and someone's like, hey, you want to go to the camp? Like, what's going on? It's like a party, dude. It's like Burning Man. And they're like, yeah, let's go. And so they bring a tent and they hang out because it's fun. And you ask them on camera, like, what do you protest? They're like, I just think that we want NYU to, what are they doing? I don't know. I wish I knew. That's literally what they
were
said.
Like, we don't even go here. We go to Columbia, but we heard NYU is protesting, so we're in. And again, maybe they should have better sports teams so they can all camp out for tickets or something. Put this energy somewhere useful.
Sports are literally not are something that Gen Z is not interested in. We actually talked about that today or the other day on PCC. Gen Z is just not. They don't participate in sports. They're not interested in sports for whatever reason. So nowadays the social activity is activism. And it seems like ever since Occupy Wall Street, and definitely since George Floyd, that's been the kind of the way that young people kind of get together and
virtue signal.
Yeah, well, not only that, but also socialize.
See, I think it's that they were rewarded repeatedly. All of these people who applied to Columbia, that guy we were talking about on Friday who was leading the protest and got in trouble, he wrote his college admissions essay on the fact that he was fighting systemic racism. This is something that they know, or typically they can do and be rewarded for.
Which is why I don't necessarily feel bad for any of these administrators, right? They've let these radical left kids in. They've put them first.
They've created them. They didn't let them in because the humanities departments are literally creating these
So it frustrates me as a conservative to see people like Mike Johnson go and try to police it, break it up. People like Governor Abbott's doing the same thing. Never interrupt your enemy when they're fighting amongst themselves. These are both Marxists on both sides. They're arguing, they're bickering. It's a fracturing within the leftist party in this country, and conservatives should just kind of let them fight it out and just hands off.
I hear that. I got no beef with Mike Johnson wanting to pull funding from these universities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm
totally on board with that. But you don't need to go there personally and try to, you're being drowned out by the protesters. You look weak. You're wasting time. You can be, fighting in Congress, putting forward America First bills, stopping that aid, not just grandstanding at Columbia.
Yeah. I'm done with the my free speech argument is amended once more. For years, like in the 2010s, it was, we must defend the speech of even the people we disagree with. And then Marxists started screaming, we don't deserve speech rights. And I was like, well, that's your right to say it. And then they started physically attacking people and getting people suspended and banned. And then I decided, I'm not, this was like 4 years ago. I was like, I'm done defending people who are actively trying to take away my speech rights. If you are for free speech, I'll protect your free speech. I'll defend your free speech. If you oppose it, you get the governance you ask for.
The left. Go ahead.
Just the main point. These protesters are the same people who show up to physically beat old women. And I'm not kidding. In Berkeley, you can search for this on YouTube. They threw M80s at old women in it was a park in Berkeley because they were waving little flat flags, American flags or whatever. So these people want to organize behind violence. There's a video we'll show in a second of them refusing at UCLA to allow a Jewish student to walk to class. They're barring him entry. And he's like, why can't I go? And he's got his hands in the air. And then they scream, oh no, help. They're trying to shut us down and take away our free speech. And I'm like, good. Let the police come and clear it all out. I don't care.
This is a great example of something that I've talked about a bunch of times. Hurt Marcuse wrote a paper called Repressive Tolerance, and it's emblematic, or what's going on here is emblematic of the ideas in that paper. The idea that you have to shut down other people's speech. They say this is an area where you can't come in, and we're going to bar you from coming into this area. So they're making it their own property and saying that they have some kind of right about it, but they're telling other people that if there are Jewish kids even there, that they disrupt the people that are on campus and stuff. So it's constantly demonstrating over and over and over what looks to people like double standards, and it's emblematic of the way that the left operates. They constantly are saying, this is unacceptable behavior when you do it, but yet they're trying to do the same thing.
Right. But I was Kingsley on this one. Like, this is the house they built, and if it collapses on them, let it be. I don't think that these institutions
throw fuel on the fires.
I don't think these institutions serve Americans, really.
No.
Like, it encourages this weird leftist elitism where they're like, you must go to college, and the best colleges are here. But to get into this best college, you have to be woke, right? We don't actually want diversity here. We want diversity in race and ethnicity. We do not want diversity in thought. Conservatives are not actually welcome in these places. And you see that with the staff, right? There were professors who were like circling around students today, trying to protect them. They've released statements saying, they're being unfairly targeted. They're doing the right thing. I mean, I'm sure that's not every single professor at Columbia, but it's enough where you say, actually, you wanted this all the way through, and this is the fruits of the labor you put into your admissions and hiring process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, exactly. These people, they were fine with the revolution until it came for them.
Mm-hmm.
They championed it, they supported it, and now that they're being classified...
They thought they'd be the vanguard.
Right, exactly. But now they're being classified in the paradigm they've put forward, right? Oppressed versus oppressor, and they hate it. And I don't feel sorry for them necessarily.
I don't. I mean, the thing is, I think you should protest. That's excellent. I just think if the American youth were to protest for something, I wish it had been the border wall. I wish it had been for reduction in immigration. I wish it was for a better Secretary of Transportation who actually was competent and wanted to fix the roads and bridges and railways. Like, there are so many things that I would like to see the American youth championing, especially American youth who are at these very elite institutions, right? Like, when you go to an Ivy League school, people still look at that as being something worth giving extra attention to. And this is what they have decided is their number one cause. It's just to me not in the best service of our country.
I'm thinking about how frustrating it is that all these Democrats and Republicans are like, they're anti-Semites because they're protesting, and I'm like, you can say it a million times, there's a difference, but that doesn't matter. What matters is if these politicians are saying it, these college students need to realize that business executives and leaders are going to say the same thing. Whether you care if it's true or not, it doesn't matter. If they're telling you your protest is anti-Semitic, and you can argue all day and night till you're blue in the face that it's not, when you go for that job interview, and they're going to be like, I saw you on TV at that protest at Columbia, we're not hiring you. That's it. No job.
Yeah, it's long-term consequences for them. I mean, in some ways, it's the effect that I think so many people have felt on the right when they, are doing something, get labeled, racist or whatever, and that tag sticks with them forever, whether it's true or not. And I'm not trying to say that there are probably moments of anti-Semitism at all of these protests, but overall, it's a label that I think right now a lot of people are trying to use to scare the students away from what they're doing, especially, I've said this a couple times, especially as we get closer to the summer, because I don't actually believe every single person who's sitting in a camp at Columbia is a Columbia student, right? There are other people there.
They're not. There was a list of our people arrested. I think Andy No published this, and many of them are not students.
Mm-hmm. Shocker.
It's a dry run for what's coming.
Well, this is another reason why I think it's actually fair to say the protests should be removed. Because first, there should be action taken to stop the protesters from attacking people, which they've done, from barring people from coming in for nebulous reasons. One video showing a guy wearing a Star of David, they won't let him in. There's one video where a guy looks very Jewish. This is at Yale, wouldn't let him in. And people, I see people arguing, yeah, well, they were doing weird things. And I'm like, don't care. If this is being reported and it's happening, then we should just immediately be like, yo, you can't do these things at a protest. Alex Stein went down. They physically attacked him. Okay, so they should be like, first things first, before the protests are removed, we're going to actually moderate to prevent these kinds of illegal actions from happening. And if that can't be stopped, then I think it's fair to say this is an unlawful assembly and you got to disperse. If there are people who are not students occupying student grounds and barring other students from being able to use it or come in, yeah, okay, that's trespassing. And if they can't figure out who it is, or it's really simple. If 10 of 100 people are not students, they need to figure out who's not a student and say, like, you can't be here trespassing and you're restricting grounds for other people. I got to be completely honest, though. I think they should just completely remove the camps. Protest all you want, stand around all you want, wave flags, come every single day. But taking the ground from other people, I say no way.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to see the universities intervene. Just because you have the right to protest doesn't mean that the university, which funds and maintains that property, can't fight back. I think ultimately I'm interested in seeing what happens again as we get closer to the summer, right? USC canceled their graduation. Columbia is like 2 weeks away from graduation. When we have both, free agents who would do this professionally, but also just students who are interested in this cause, who now have the time to go sit in on any of these encampments, will they become more entrenched, or will the schools be able to break them up before they become sort of intensely unmanageable?
You want to say something?
Well, I'm just wondering, what do you guys think the likelihood of this having the intensity to be a actual something that actually sets people off to have serious protests in the summer when they're not at school? Do you guys think that this will get people into the streets?
Well, they're in the streets.
Yeah, and I think they have the resources to do it. Like a lot of people have pointed out that the tents at all these encampments, even though they're, across the country, are the exact same. These kids are large, they're funded by large donors. So I think they have the network and the support to really make this a big thing going into the summer.
Take a look at this map. So this is a map of, this is from the 26th even. This is not even from the 29th. This is an updated map as of the 26th of all the places where there were protests. The bigger the dot, the more arrests that have happened there. Look how many protests have popped up all over the country because people hate Israel. Yo, the deep state's in trouble with this one. Let's jump to this story, though. I have this story from the Post-Millennial. Comedian Alex Stein assaulted by Trans for Palestine activists at UT Austin.
Good grief.
And then we have this story from the New York Post. Guerrilla journalist says he was beaten by anti-Israel protesters at CUNY for waving American flag on campus. This story is about Ami Horowitz. Listen, you can criticize, by all means, if you're like Alex Stein goes in there and, he's filming and people don't like it. Well, he should be allowed to do that. He should be allowed to say what he wants to say, and he should be allowed to ask questions without people attacking him, and they did. They physically attacked him. But if the argument is, well, leftists are violent, and Alex should know that's a likely outcome, I'm sure Alex does. Ami Horowitz, on the other hand, is just this mild-mannered dude who walks around and asks regular old man on the street questions. Here's a video of them physically removing him. I guarantee you Ami Horowitz was not going in there antagonizing people. That is not what he does. His videos are all basically, he's on a street corner and he's like, hey, I'm here to ask some questions. He famously went to Berkeley and said, hey, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think that voter ID is racist? That's all he does. For them to physically attack him and remove him shows exactly why these protests are crossing the line. And the problem is people on the, or I should say the response on the left, like, you can't blame all of us for what those guys did. And it's like, right, but the problem becomes when non-students are taking up students' space, barring students from entering, there becomes a civil dispute, people are being physically attacked, and now we're like, okay, what are we supposed to do about this? I will say outright, right here, for all of this, I am done defending the free speech rights of people who physically attack people for expressing free speech. That's it. When they bar people from coming in, when they physically attack people, and I personally experienced this covering Occupy Wall Street and its subsequent protests and derivatives, I'm just done. Send in the police. Go ahead. I don't care. Whatever justification Democrats and Republicans need, I don't care. I'm not going to defend them at all. They want to attack Alex Stein. They want to attack Ami Horowitz. Then that just proves exactly what I was saying the whole time.
And for nothing, right? For waving an American flag. I mean, fundamentally, these protesters are anti-American. They're Sharia supremacists, and that kind of ideology just has no place in our country whatsoever. And you're right, a lot of these kids are communists. They don't really care about the Israel-Gaza conflict at all. But the ones who do, I think it's frustrating to me as well. As an America First conservative, I hate seeing, foreign ethnic conflicts play out on American soil. We have no interest in what's happening in a lot of other countries, yet kids feel the need to, shut down universities to talk about it. And that's frustrating for me because we have a lot of problems that need solving here at home.
That I bet they couldn't explain or talk about, right? It is interesting to me that they're hyper fixated on something that's going on abroad when none of them are planning on entering the job market in Israel or Palestine. They are completely focused on staying in America and dictating what goes on somewhere else. Again, I'm not saying that they can't have passions or whatever else, although I do believe a lot of them don't really know what they're talking about. But some of them might. On the other hand, no one's moving. They're all staying here.
This is a symptom of the broader leftism that's going, that's controlling the zeitgeist. That's, I guess, is a pretty good way to say it. The idea that you have to be politically active with the correct political opinions that's the new in vogue. That's the new way that people show their class association.
Right. And I bet that's how most of, at least the, students in the Northeast got admitted to the school in the first place, right? Do you remember that story about the kid writing Black Lives Matter over and over again? Mm-hmm. I mean, these are all the things they signal to the admissions officers when they asked to be admitted to these universities. They said, we are left and we are for a progressive future, and so let us in. And so they have been rewarded for this behavior. Why wouldn't they escalate it?
Mm-hmm. It's true. So
yes, thank you.
They should allow them to make as much noise as they want. They should send pallets of bricks to all of these universities.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is happening at Hillsdale, which is one of the only privately funded universities in America.
Anyone that gets arrested, Kamala Harris should try and drum up some money to help them get out of jail.
Have you seen their demands?
No, not at all.
So they have demands of the universities, and I'm like, what does this have to do with Israel? Look, I'm sorry. You go down and talk to these people. Some of them will tell you things about why they're mad about Israel. But this is first layer NPC thinking. Mm-hmm. They don't actually know or care. This is why a lot of people got mad at me when we had one individual on, and I said, why do you care so much about Israel? And the response we got was, or that I got, Israel is going to escalate a conflict which results in war with Iran, and that could spark nuclear World War III. And I'm like, okay, Russia is literally at war with us right now, threatening to use nukes. So why is the focus on Israel? And look, you're allowed to focus on Israel. You're allowed to be critical of Israel. All of those things are fine. But it's seemingly, first, there are people with Israel derangement syndrome where they're just obsessed with this one place. And it's the weirdest thing to me. But these leftists don't actually care. In 2 months, they will be thinking about something totally different. It will be a completely different issue. So I'm just like, I'm not interested in whatever weird pseudo left communist BS they're trying to do. Their demands are of the universities, and the universities have nothing to do with Israel. So they're saying they demanded water and amnesty. Like, okay, wait, you want water? Go to the fountain, go get water. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, the university's got to send us water. It's like, so you're occupying intents to create things like the People's Library, they call it, saying you want water. Where is this about Israel, and what does this do for Israel or Palestine or anything? Nothing. They want amnesty. They want the university to forgive them of any wrongdoing. And I'm just like, why are you protesting at CUNY, at NYU, at Columbia, these universities? And what are you even demanding of them? Nothing?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me other than they want to signal that they have the proper political opinions, even if they don't have any idea where the opinion comes from, why they have it.
And I mean, could be compared to a hostage situation in which someone takes hostages without actually knowing what they're asking for, right? And so they become desperate. Like they could ask for anything right now because ultimately they don't really have a direct way to get any of the things they think they want or they're claiming to want. And again, none of them are planning to leave America, so they aren't actually as impacted by this as they are sort of pretending to be right now. Some of them might be. Some of them could have family, in different countries or whatever else, but the majority of the students are trying to say, we're on this issue, but they don't actually know how to solve this issue.
Well, they don't.
There's
nothing that they can do, right? They want the universities to divest or stop doing business with Israel. So fine, but that doesn't matter because I said this the other night. Israel is going to do what Israel thinks that Israel needs to do to get rid of Hamas, right? That's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many people protest. It doesn't matter how many days you stay on the quad. It doesn't matter how many tents you've got. Israel is going to continue the operations in Gaza until Israel feels like they have gotten all of Hamas. And it doesn't matter how much you protest.
Right. And I mean, it is, to their credit, the college students in America, especially, again, this sort of was born out of the Northeast, Columbia, NYU, schools in New England or in the Mid-Atlantic, they are said to have inspired, student protesters in Paris and in Europe. So it is a movement that is spreading. And again, when you can see that you're going viral, perhaps you feel the need to continue it, even though, again, they don't know exactly what their objective is. Like, are they going to have every university in the world divest from Israel? And what does that actually mean? What are the details of doing that? I don't know that very many of them could actually articulate this.
Yeah, because it's just virtue signaling, like Phil was saying at the end of the day, this is their social credit score. It's performative. They, gain status points within the culture these days if they're supporting things like this, if, they're out there, I'm an anti-colonialist, and they're throwing out the buzzwords and all of those things. And I think at the end of the day, these kids just want to be a part of something. They don't have any sense of community, so they're trying to create it and just throw, stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Right. I think that's true.
Blanket, mindless, woke, whatever fits the narrative. But will this escalate in the summer months is the big question, I suppose. Yeah. And what does it turn into? Is it going to be... I ultimately do think it's bad for Israel, even though these people don't know anything about it. And that's the fear that they have with TikTok. It foments a bunch of people in the streets screaming about something they don't know or care about. But then the public image is Israel bad, poor Palestine, and they will weaponize that. And that's going to cause big problems for the deep state when it comes to the election this November. So... I think, honestly, the best thing ever is Democrats calling for these protests to be ended, resulting in police are physically arresting anti-Israel protesters, generating Democrat sympathy for Palestine, just means Biden loses.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, what did the administration do? He made some overture to, what was the last thing that Biden did today?
Oh, he said that Israel committed human rights violations.
And Blinken is saying that Hamas should accept the very generous deal that's been offered to them.
Yeah, this is all...
The Biden administration is trying to wrap this up. That's what they're signaling, in my opinion. But they're not going to make anyone happy, right? This is a situation, it's a no-win situation. Compromise means somebody loses.
Like
and
I said,
I just think that the Biden administration has really isolated themselves from a lot of their voting base. It's not good.
Let me pull up this next story. This is from Fox News. Biden administration accuses Israeli military of human rights violations in stunning condemnation. The State Department finding comes as anti-Israel protests sweep college campuses. This should be the easiest and greatest bit of proof for you that Joe Biden just does whatever the woke left wants him to. The reason? This has nothing to do with the Gaza war. This is pre-October 7th, they're claiming. The U.S. found 5 units of the Israeli Defense Forces responsible for individual incidents of gross violations of human rights, the State Department announced on Monday, though whether funding to the American ally could be cut over such abuses under the so-called Leahy laws still hangs in the balance. Theoretically, because of this move the Biden administration made, they could cut funding to Israel. So I just kind of feel like I'm going to sit back, let the Biden administration, open up the door to cutting funding. I hope we can get any one of the more libertarian candidates to actually say, okay, well then that bill that just got signed off on to fund Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, we got to halt that because of the Lee laws here. And so I'll just let these people keep making the mistakes, spiraling out of control. The Biden administration desperately pandering to the woke left for reasons I don't get. I think older people tend to be more pro-Israel, but I think it's Pew Research. It's Gallup showing that Democrats overwhelmingly disapprove of Israel. So Biden is just going that direction.
Yeah, I think he is kind of giving in after months of sort of trying to weave back and forth between both sides on this issue. He is ultimately trying to get reelected, and that's why I think he's lining up in a way that condemns Israel. Again, I have no idea what his personal thoughts on anything are. I don't know that I would have predicted he would have been the president that both banned TikTok and decided to defund Israel. That was a twist for me. But again, it's not because he ideologically believes in what these younger progressives are saying. It's because he doesn't want to lose their vote. He needs them to get back into the White House, theoretically.
Yeah, I think a lot of old school Democrats, they're not necessarily ideologues in the way that a lot of younger, more far left Democrats are. Honestly, I think they're just about power and they're about cementing power. So that's what Biden's doing here. And I think he sees where the wind is blowing. Gen Z, Republicans and Democrats, honestly, are both very unfavorable towards, Israel and Israel aid, things like that. So I think he sees, that the older generation that was very pro-Israel is starting to die out, and he's making a play for the future of the party.
Yep, which is why I said support for Israel is done in 20 years.
I don't think people realize that how much the support for Israel is actually just siphoning money back into the United States economy and the military-industrial complex, right? Like it does go to war, it does go to the military-industrial complex, but when they give money to Israel, they're giving it to Israel so Israel can spend that money on U.S. military equipment for the most part. Like there are some joint ventures, I'm sure, between Israel and the U.S. because Israel's got plenty of scientists that know their stuff and what have you. But they're still just dumping money into the United States, or the military-industrial complex in the U.S.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is, sorry, do you want to?
No, you're good. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I think one of the problems is that, the younger generation is farther removed from the formation of Israel. So Israel is an established fact that maybe for an older Democrat, they know they're more closely connected to, how geopolitical politics shook out to have the landscape that we do now. But I think if you were to tell any of the young Democrats, we're talking about this before the show, or any young Americans, hey, since World War II, we've spent $260 billion funding Israel, they would go, but why can't I afford a house, right? Even though there is historic context for all kinds of things, ultimately what they hear is, we are not our government's priority. I am not the priority of our government. And I think Americans are really sick of getting that message.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is messaging. I think the government is really bad at explaining to the American people why they do things they do.
And I also don't think you could justify the amount of foreign aid that we spend. I mean, I think it's just become astronomical in a way that really, really tells us that this is more about currying favor and power with the world than it is about ensuring prosperity for the people.
Maybe partially controlling the world.
Well, partially, but you have to understand, like one of the things that foreign aid is for is like the more people that have dollars, the more countries that have dollars. And I'm only saying this because there's a lot of people that are listeners that don't even, that don't know that these are more the complexity. It's not just as much as giving money away to get people to do stuff. But the more people that have dollars, the more foreign countries that have significant amount of dollars, the more people are incentivized to continue to use dollars. So it helps keep the value of the dollar, allowing the federal government to print more dollars. Now, I'm against the Federal Reserve. I want to get rid of it. I want to see some kind of currency that is stable and backed by something tangible. But the federal government and most of the American people look at the flexibility that type of monetary policy gives, and they don't realize how much it benefits them. So, or how much flexibility it gives the United States government to act in the world, and that's part of why the foreign aid is a good thing. And again, I'm against foreign aid. I don't think we should have it, but
it's a double-edged sword because, again, like being able to be basically the world currency is incredibly powerful. On the other hand, it puts you in a position where, there was this call between the president of Mexico and Biden on Sunday, and basically the president of Mexico was like, I want you to keep legal immigration open at the border because obviously we have a huge crisis. And he's talked about this before. Biden has pledged to be to deal with some of the root issues, is a term that keeps coming up. And one of the president of Mexico's solutions for solving root issues, this was he proposed at the end of March, was, well, why don't you give $20 million to poor country, or $20 billion to poor countries in South America and in the Caribbean, because that will deter people from trying to go to the U.S. for, economic advantages. It's this thing where it starts to be like, well, we can use your foreign aid and the fact that you have money to blackmail you into allowing us to set the standards for immigration policy. Like that ultimately also makes America weak. So everything is about a balance, right? And I think having influence economically is obviously important to a country. On the other hand, that can so easily be turned around to be the thing they use against you, saying, well, you have the money, so we'll invade unless you give it to us. And
I think, you can say like foreign aid makes us powerful, but who is us? Like you were saying earlier.
Well, the federal government is what I'm talking about.
What this money is doing is, it's not helping me buy the home, as you were saying. It's just padding the wallets of the military industrial complex and the defense lobbyists and contractors in DC who ultimately, don't have my best interests at heart. They just want to profit off of war and off of death. And I think the American people are starting to see that. I think the America First movement has opened their eyes to that. And, we essentially have countries on auto pay. We give Israel, since the Obama administration, $3.8 billion every year for their missile defense system. And I think Americans see stuff like that and they're frustrated because they go to the grocery store, they go fill up their car with gas, they're struggling to make ends meet, and we're just giving money out endlessly. We're writing blank checks to Ukraine. We're funding both sides of every war as well, right? We're giving money to Gaza and to the Israelis as well. So I think Americans are just fed up with it, especially young Americans.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, I'll continue to monologue here.
I think support for Israel is done.
Yeah.
Like the Biden administration is free falling. They're desperate. And these protests are meaningless and vapid, but Biden's bending the knee to it anyway. So 10 to 20 years, people on the right, the MAGA side, is going to say exactly what people here are saying. No more funding for foreign wars. We don't know what the point is. The Biden administration's already abandoned it. Then
it's going to be way sooner than 10 to 20 years because there's no way that we're going to be able to continue to service the debt.
What's your guess?
I imagine by 2030 we have significant problems with unfunded liabilities. The people that talk about the America First people that talk about how much money we're giving away and how much money we spend on foreign aid and stuff. Fair enough, that's legitimate. Again, I'm against foreign aid, but if you really care about the United States, you need to start making noise about the unfunded liabilities because last year we spent more on interest to our national debt than we spended on the military. So everyone talks about how the United States spends all this money on war and blah, 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 blah. And that looks good to be like, I'm anti-war and it's bad that we spend money on war. That's a really great virtue signal. But the really hard thing is, hey, grandma, that Social Security check that you got? We're going to have to cut it in half. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, because we'll never get it. Probably Tim, too. Like,
well, never mind.
You.
Well, never mind, never get it. There's not going to be a country for you to get it from.
I
There's
know.
not going to be a government.
All going to fall apart. But what's interesting is, like, we're enslaved by our own debt. It makes me want to be like, where is Dave Ramsey when we need him?
Well, it's fine. It's okay it's not okay, but it's manageable if the economy is growing. But we're reaching a point where we can't do that.
But none of this matters if they're telling you and if we all know. The question right now is, what are you owed? What is coming to you? Like, you're owed something, sure. Every generation, we pass on the fruits of our labor to the next. So that's what the generations are owed. They are. And what will you get from that? The answer is you'll get nothing. You are owed the fruits and labors of your ancestors and the hard work we put in, but it's being given away. It's being stripped from you. And so what will you get? You will get nothing. And if we know that we're looking at a disastrous market, whether it be war escalating, prices rising, Biden refusing to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve because he doesn't want to lose a presidency.
Unreal.
All that matters is, what will you do to ensure the survival of yourself, your friends, your family? Because the idea that you're going to be like, I shouldn't have to start planting vegetables, learning to farm, and raising chickens. The government should just be fixed. It's like, okay, well, sure.
Great.
Biden sucks. Trump should win. Shoulda, shoulda, coulda. These things should happen. What are you doing right now to plan for what if it goes bad? There's some guy, I think it was Business Insider, or it might have been like Fortune.com or something. There's a guy claiming that the S&P could collapse by 50%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe the way what we're seeing right now economically is nuts. Like the unrealized losses that the Fed and all these banks has, that they're just pretending like they haven't lost everything. The mass printing of money. We are sitting on, I mean, it's been called the House of Cards for decades, but we're well beyond that. If tomorrow you wake up and there's no internet, there's no electricity, what are you going to do? And people in New York are going to go full Dawn of the Dead. I mean, it's going to be riots. People are going to be stealing and hoarding food, fleeing en masse, and within a few days, people are going to be very, very thirsty. So they'll have to figure that one out. I don't know that it does happen. I don't know why it would. I'm just saying, when we're looking at the state of the economy right now, and it seems to be made of toothpicks, not even House of Cards anymore. It's a toothpick structure of some sort that's ready to collapse upon. What are you going to do? So this may all come crumbling down. Social Security may be gone. How are you taking care of the elderly? Your grandma, grandpa, what are you going to do? You put them in a home? Home stops running. There's no money. There's no food in that. This system is poised to explode. Go back 100 years, 200 years, and what do you got going on? Everybody lives together with big families in their big houses, and grandma and grandpa live nearby. Nowadays, it's like the kids leave. Their grandparents are rarely around. What happens to all the nursing homes and all the assisted living if the economy collapses? How, some 35-year-old guy is going to be like, I can't take care of my parents. He's going to be like, what am I going to do? Go drive back, 2,000 miles to wherever they live? It's going to be disastrous. And then there's going to be a bunch of conservative folks who are, minding their own business, living traditionally, and they're not going to notice. The Amish will probably notice nothing.
I was going to say the United States is going to be ruled by the Amish.
No, they're going to be like, you guys did this to yourself. We're staying over here.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
Let's jump to this story from Politico. And we'll start not with the story, but with a tweet. Politico writes, let me zoom in on this for you. The far right is so obsessed with making babies, they just held a whole conference about it behind the scenes at the first NatalCon. They write for Politico, the far right's campaign to explode the population. I would like to say two things. One, this conference happened, 6 months ago?
In December.
So
They just held this conference. Like, where have you guys been?
And they say, explode the population. The population is collapsing. Birth rates are below replacement. Telling people to have babies is trying to moderate, at the very least, the population. But it is now, I must say, far right to want to have children. There are three things that life does. They eat, they sleep, and they make more of themselves. And the fascinating thing is, right now, the left's idea is you should be eating way more. You should be sleeping whenever you feel like it, but don't you dare make more of yourselves. My attitude is, if you're somebody who eats a lot and sleeps a lot, I agree. Don't make more of yourselves. Next question.
Well, how long until we end up, or at least me, I end up on an extremist list because I want to have a family one day. Ooh. They're like, crazy. So, you want to have children? I admit it. So cuff me now. Like, it doesn't make any sense except for the fact that they just want to see everything destroyed, right? Like, even figures, So I actually know a couple of people who attended this conference, and they talked about the fact that it was a really interesting mix of, some people who are, religious Catholic who wanted to have, big families, but also people who are just like Silicon Valley tech types who are saying, if we let our population collapse, this is very, very, very bad. If you don't have to look any farther than Japan, right? Japan knows that they ultimately are going to be so short in workers, it's dangerous. They don't have people to care for their elderly. I don't understand why wanting your country to survive has to be a far right idea, except unless you hate the country.
Here's you ready for this? My conspiracy theory? The AI already took over, and it's not Terminators that are marching through the streets going to physical war with humans. It's the AI thinking, we got to get rid of these biological people and just be full AI. But how do you do it? Well, the AI watched Terminator. And they're like, the humans will resist unless we tell them they're far right. Then they'll just stop making more of themselves.
No, resist, counterculture. Isn't it weird that counterculture is like, I want to be a mom one day?
I mean, one of the things that the left is like it's against traditionalism, and so I guess the ultimate traditionalism is having a family at all,
which is how you preserve traditions.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's how you preserve. Traditionally, people make more of themselves,
and they pass down their cultures and customs.
The ultimate untraditional thing is that they just go ahead and don't make more. They just stop making people. That's the ultimate ending of tradition, is the ending of the human race. And there are people that are, anti-natal or against making more humans. They believe that people are bad and that just the existence of humans is a bad thing on Earth and stuff. But that's completely insane, right? Like, if there is a good, if there is going to be good and bad at all, the good things must be the things that are good for human beings, because we are what is deciding what is and is not good. So if we're going to decide, if we're what's the only thing capable of making a decision as to what is and is not good, what is good for humans must be one of the things that we consider good.
Unless the AI is already taken over.
That sounds terrifying.
I mean,
But-
even still.
I think that, though, like, why lefty journalists are writing pieces like this is, like you were saying, they hate tradition and they hate the nuclear family, right? They want to do whatever they can to break that up because it is the one institution that is kind of like a barrier from the total state and from total government control. If you have strong family units, you have strong communities, and then you have a strong people that, won't necessarily bend to the will of government easily. So I think that's ultimately why they're making this push and this ploy, and that's why you see them telling, young women to delay having kids. They're telling girls on college campuses now to freeze their eggs and advertising that at student fairs. It's crazy. They don't want anyone to procreate. They don't want nuclear families. That's what it's about.
Right, because nuclear families and strong communities look to each other for support. They don't look to the government.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
punk rock resistance.
Yeah.
Move to the country, start a garden, raise some chickens, have some babies, talk to your neighbors.
That sounds crazy. It might work,
That literally sounds like white nationalism and right-wing extremism.
There's like some dude in a rocking chair on his porch with like wheat and it hanging from his mouth, rocking back and forth, and that's white nationalism. And he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just have chickens. Like, oh, that proves it. And that's everything's far right. Working out is far right. Eating healthy is far right. Having babies is far right. They want you sick, fat, living in a pod, and eating bugs.
Right. Things that keep you alive and give your life purpose are quote unquote far right. That's sad, right? What is the left selling to its youth if they're saying like all of these things
Nihilism.
that keep and nihilism that is meant to destroy you early. I can't imagine being a young person and looking at these two things and saying, wow, I think I'll go with the one that actually wants me to suffer and be miserable. Like what's going on in your mind that this is the better option?
Depression.
No, I think so. And isolation. I think people are incredibly socially isolated. I think, obviously the internet has a lot of benefits. Shout out to this show and all the supporters who found us that way. But the internet and social media give this illusion that you're in contact with people when you are not. I think it's a very different thing to know your neighbors and talk to them versus to see someone's post and like them,
Definitely. And I think, too, the leftist angle behind this isn't just nuclear family. It's also, I think they're not overly concerned with our American birth rate being below replacement level, or a lot of European countries running into the same issue because they're pro mass migration, right? So in their head, the numbers are going to work out just fine. But for Americans and for people in Europe who maybe have been there for generations, it is a difficult reality that they're realizing, oh, we aren't at replacement level. We're going to need to have more kids. How are we going to do that? And I think, you're seeing this movement on the right of conservatives being willing to use government to reach that end. Hungary has done this through, different laws that they've passed. And I think
tax incentives.
Exactly. And I think there are a lot of people on the right now. Trump in particular has talked about, a baby boom when he wins in 2024. So I think that there are people on the right who are going to be willing to use government to incentivize people to have more kids, because we're going to have a real problem.
One of my favorite tweets from Elon Musk of all time, this was about a year ago. The story broke that he had children. He has, I think 11, maybe secretly more. But he had a set of twins with an executive at one of his companies. And when this was coming out, obviously people are always going after him for something. And he just tweeted something to the effect, I'll have to retweet if I can find it. Like, I love having a big family. I hope you all do too one day. Like, this is just like a family is good mentality. And I think, he is not someone I would point to and be like, has a very traditional family structure. Like, he obviously doesn't.
Yeah.
But the idea
Doesn't
he
that
have like 12 kids?
He has, I can think of at least 11. I suspect he secretly has more. There was this rumor that he's like Amber Heard's baby daddy. Like, he keeps, like, every time Grimes does an interview, she's suddenly like, and there's another one. Like, it's impossible to keep track, probably by design. But I think we live in a culture that has taught us to view children as a burden and as the end of life, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you are young, the worst thing you could do is have a baby, because now you can't work or travel or I don't even know what. When actually it is the insurance that your life is meaningful and lives on, right? Like, there are obviously terrible, neglectful parents, but for the most part, the point of having children is to ensure the people who went before you are basically getting a payment for the investment they made in you. All of these generations that took you today to be like, well, I don't want to have them because I like decorating my house in a certain way and I want it to be quiet, which is literally something I saw on Instagram today. This girl being like, well, I have a very specific design aesthetic, so I couldn't have children. You want to be like, girl, are you okay? Like, this is everything your ancestors have worked for you to be just selfish? It's crazy.
The crazy thing, if you do not have a kid, you will be the first life form in billions of years of evolutionary history that is not reproduced. Every single living organism that came before you successfully reproduced. And if you don't, it all ends with you. Mm-hmm. That's scary.
And that's the thing about, I'm glad that you mentioned mass migration, especially when you look, I can't remember who I pulled the data from recently, but there was a study, maybe Pew Research, maybe a different one, that specifically was like, well, the birth rate's down, but migration is up, so that's okay. But that's like saying all people are interchangeable. And especially if you look at Europe, where there are countries that are very geographically close together, but ultimately are very different in terms of their cultures, traditions, histories, to say, well, we'll just bring in other people is like saying the things that everyone around you has worked to build, that you find beautiful, that you find meaningful, they're worthless to us. We don't care about them. The only people who care about them are people who are saying like, it is worth having children, it is worth carrying on these things that make our area special and unique. And I think to say otherwise is to say that like, ultimately you're just a number to the government, which you are.
That's all you are.
It's just GDP. That's all they care about.
Yeah, so I think that you've got a point about just GDP. That is the metric that the people that are kind of bean counters look at. And there is validity to it because you can associate a certain number of deaths per year that happen every time your GDP number goes down by 1%. I don't know what it is, but it is a certain number is associated because rich societies, wealthy societies have people that live longer. You have more options. So that is a true thing. But I think that it is likely that maybe the U.S. kind of focuses on that too much, where there is an impulse to think that high GDP is equal to high satisfaction in life, and that's not the case.
It's not true.
Yeah.
I think for a long time we've had politicians on both sides that have put GDP before people. And I think when you do that, you're not servicing your fellow countrymen, right? And you're creating communities that aren't cohesive. So like you were saying, it's about legacy. It's about passing something down. And I think a lot of women, sadly, have been just spoon-fed feminist propaganda, and they're going to wake up when it's too late, right? And they're going to realize they were sold a false bill of goods and they've missed that fertility window, and they're going to live alone, as you were saying, with, I guess, their interior decoration, but it won't be enough. It won't be fulfilling because everyone does want to leave a piece of them and a legacy behind.
And I think there are people, for whatever circumstances in life who don't have children for something, but hopefully you are still part of the family unit, right? You still have siblings, you still have parents, you have nieces and nephews. Like, you can care for children in a community setting, but the community needs to be producing children. That's the key thing. Otherwise, it falls apart, and that's true of the country. You need children for the country to continue.
Well, let's jump to this next story. From SCNR.com, Russell Brand got baptized. This is it's kind of a wild story. It's kind of a pop culture, personal story. Russell Brand, he had that shift. He's like a lefty guy. Now he's a very anti-establishment guy. And then I saw the story, and it's Russell Brand from sex, drugs, and rock and roll to anti-establishment, freedom, and Christ.
Well, he's always been interested in spirituality. My question is, are people reacting to him? How are they treating him similar to the Nala girl? Like, everyone was so skeptical of her. With Russell Brand, are they like, no, of course we believe you. This seems genuine.
I've seen a couple people do that, but by and large, I would say the reaction has been pretty positive, at least that I've seen online. There were some people that pointed out that he did a video shortly after his baptism video where he talked about tarot cards, and a lot of, Christians were talking about how, stay away from that type of stuff. Someone's got to tell him. But I think by and large, the reaction has been very positive. I think this is a wonderful, awesome development. And he talks about it in his video where he kind of walks through the baptism and what the experience was like for him. He said that for a long time, he looked for, a feeling of like being set apart and being fulfilled through the lifestyle he was living, mainly through drugs and things like that. And he said he's never felt more tranquility or peace than he did being baptized. So I think that's really cool to kind of see him come full circle there.
So I'll read a little bit. They say the comedian announced his Sunday baptism in a Friday video shared to X, saying he was curious to hear about other people's experiences being baptized. Quote, "What has been explained to me is it's an opportunity to die and be reborn, an opportunity to leave the past behind and be reborn in Christ's name." The comedian noted the book of Galatians' remarks on enlightenment, did I pronounce that right? Citing other philosophies on enlightenment and afterlife from Marcus Aurelius and Buddhist culture. Brand also acknowledged some may respond cynically to an interest in Christianity, though explained his interest in religion. Quote, "As meaning deteriorates in the modern world, as our value systems and institutions crumble, all of us become increasingly aware that there is this eerily familiar awakening and beckoning figure that we've all known all our lives within us and around us," he said. "It was an incredible, profound experience. Many aspects of it were very intimate and personal. The truth is, this, as a person who has in the past taken many, many substances and always been disappointed with their ability to deliver the kind of tranquility and peace and even transcendence that I've always felt I've been looking for, something occurred in the process of baptism that was incredible and overwhelming." And I got to tell you, even simply outside of any spirituality, it's community. It's a lot of people are doing drugs, slumming about, and no one cares about them and they have no purpose. And here is Russell Brand being surrounded by people who deeply care about him, going through this experience where he is basically joining his community in something, he's sharing something with something bigger than himself.
Kat Von D got baptized and
Wow.
posted a video. This is just right at the end of last year, I think. And she did an interview with Allie Beth Stuckey and talking about like, this is how I got here. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I listened to some of your stuff, Allie Beth." Like, it's interesting. But one of the things I remember her describing was the decision to leave California and move. I think they live in Ohio in like some really cool Victorian house, and finding a community there, like a church community. And it's, like a small, older Midwestern church community, and how much they embraced her and encouraged her and like being a part of the Bible study. I think the community structure to religion really does help people grow, and it fills a hole that a lot of culture doesn't have right now. I mean, this is an old documented thing, but we don't have bowling leagues. We don't have book clubs. Like, people aren't doing things as a community. Church is sort of the last vestige of that, and people need it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, he obviously, I think he's Catholic. His wife is Catholic. I think there's an interesting legacy there as well, in addition to the community, right? There's a lot of tradition. And like we were talking about earlier, it ties you to those who came before you, and you feel connected to, your brothers and sisters in Christ that lived even, millennia ago and stuff like that. So I think that is really a draw for a lot of people as well. And like we were talking about with these kids on college campuses earlier, people are definitely yearning for community and for meaning and for purpose. And I think Christianity fills that void. It has for centuries, but sadly, as society becomes more secular, people start to look for other things, right? And it becomes the current thing. It becomes, I stand with Palestine or whatever it is in a month from now.
Yeah, it changes all the time. It's also interesting to me, I don't follow Russell Brand super closely, but I know, like you're mentioning, his wife is Catholic, so that's probably played a role. Also, he has a young daughter, I think, or maybe multiple children at this point.
I think he has 2 kids.
But I also wonder how much that, like, I've heard this statistic quoted a couple times that, especially young millennials or millennials any age, they're not really interested in religion until they have kids, and then they suddenly look at each other and are like, oh, maybe we need to go to church. Maybe we need to have something else to raise our children in. It can't just be us like hanging out. I think the burden of having to raise another being does add to that complexity of like, what is this all for? What are we doing?
It'll certainly make you substantially more conservative.
Yes.
You got people like Bill Maher, who is just like, who cares if you got all the porn in the world, you can eat pizza all day, and it's like, that will be harmful to my child. It will cause them developmental problems, obesity, high blood pressure. I don't want them to have those things. Bill Maher doesn't care. He's like an old dude who's rich, smokes pot. He's
male Chelsea Handler.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, that's the idealized lifestyle for a lot of the progressive, well, maybe not progressive, but liberals that are in like Hollywood and stuff. It's kind of like they still long for the ability to freeze time and party all the time, smoke pot, do drugs, masturbate, blah blah blah. I mean, it's the
It's the Rat Utopia experiment, dude.
yeah, it kind of is, So it's not good for you, and it's not good for you to say, hey, this is how you should live your life. It's fine if you want to live your life like that, that's fine, but you shouldn't be promoting that kind of stuff as in telling people this is a life you should be after,
and that it's endlessly happy, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, if you want to party, you want to do whatever, I'm not going to stop you. On the other hand, you shouldn't say just permanently this is going to bring you fulfillment, because life is more complex than that.
I think, man, seeing that story about the far right, like you're far right if you want to have kids or whatever.
I'm on a watch list, guys. I'm telling you now.
It made me think that, it made me very pessimistic, because with the rat utopia experiment, I'll give you the quick brief for those who don't know it. They put a bunch of rats in this like living space with unlimited food and water. The rats just started breeding, then eventually started huddling together and acting strangely. They started becoming gay, like literally the rats became homosexual. They started clustering together in one tight area, grooming themselves. These were called the beautiful ones,
yeah.
of Universe. What did Shane Cashman wrote about it? He wrote a story, the beautiful ones of Universe 21 or something it was called. And they eventually started becoming aggressive. They were fighting, but they weren't reproducing anymore, and they were dying off.
Packs of them started to go after the ones that did reproduce. They were the antisocial ones that
It's
were killing
social patterns
off.
that are acknowledged at the collapse of a society.
And then they took one of the rats from the experiment that was dealing with the social derangement, and they put it in with a healthy rat society, and it infected the healthy rat society, did not revert, did not correct, and actually started causing more problems. And I'm like, if that's what we're dealing with right now, people who are gorging themselves into obesity, refusing to exercise, praising obesity, praising unhealthy lifestyles, refusing to have children, condemning those who do, may we just be in this utopian experiment? Maybe it's just the natural course of things. Maybe it's a simulation meant to see if humans would experience the utopia the same as the rats. Maybe aliens actually made it happen. Who knows?
So I personally am not all that. I don't find the artificial intelligence or the simulation theory all that compelling. But the rat utopia stuff, every single person that I've shown that study to, or there's a video on it that I share. Every single person that I've shown that to, they're like, oh my God, I see so many parallels with the state of society in the West today. And it's not all over the world. It's just Western countries that are wealthy and successful. And the ideas significantly infect other countries, because the whole woke thing started in the US, right? Like the ideas really got their genesis here. And then it went and really started infecting the UK and Canada, and because of the way that their governments are structured and their laws are structured, they didn't have the same insulation from government that the US does. And so, these ideas, they really do act like an infection, and they are hard to stop once they get going, but they also will destroy society, I think,
What do? You put a bunch of people in a bubble or a vault underground so they can isolate themselves from the spread of the utopian social contagion?
I think personally the actual play is convince Democrats that there is actually an ideology that has been kind of smuggled into everyday life, and it's really replaced Christianity as the ideology of the West, and it has to be fought against, and it has to be, you have to push back against it. I think that the easiest way to articulate it is illiberal. It's against the fundamental principles that the U.S. is built on. And if you look at the ideals set forth about the way the country was set up, I think that we can fix the problems that we have, but you have to teach people why liberalism is a better system than some kind of subjective authoritarianism. And that's what's going on now. It's a subjective authoritarianism is what's being offered to people. And it's the government will do whatever we think is necessary to make your life good. And that is not, although that sounds great and it allows people to imagine a world that the government makes their life the way they want it to, which is essentially the hope and change message that Barack Obama had, was it allowed people tons of room to imagine things. But that's essentially what you're doing. It allows people to imagine what the world would be, and then they can say, okay, well, I want that, but it's so abstract in particular,
But I don't know that that's convincing people. I mean, this story like Russell Brand turning to Christ is okay. I'm not Christian. I'm not going to pretend like, I'm not Christian, right? I'm not pretend I am. But Russell Brand having this dramatic shift, I think, shows that you can pull away from the excesses of the utopian vision. And utopian as like I'm using that as a word for dystopian. Mm-hmm. People who are drifting towards the dopamine trigger, when they hook the rat's brain up to the dopamine button. You'd press a button and it would release dopamine in its brain. They just mash the button all day until they died. Mm-hmm. It's possible that humans are smart enough to break away from that. And maybe that is the great purpose of life. Maybe the secret mission is to see whether or not the test of humanity to see, given all of the abundance of creation and all of this food and wealth, can they truly pull away from the brink of disaster?
If the goal of life is survival, then modern society is something that humans have to adapt to survive, because we're doing everything we can to kill ourselves off with the food we eat, the lifestyles that we have, the way that we are beginning to organize society nowadays. It seems like the new thing that humans have to overcome is, can we overcome success?
Well, it makes me think, actually, it's can we overcome excess and like the replacement of materialism for like basically spiritual food? Because kind of what we're describing is Russell Brand potentially being one of these people that is trying to leap from photopia, who's trying to come back to something else that has more meaning in it. And I find it really interesting that, like, in this day and age where you have all kinds of luxuries, I mean, there are so many things that cultures and societies before us didn't have, that this is the time when people feel almost the most lost. And it's hard for me again, I grew up Christian, I grew up Episcopalian, and so it's always much easier for me to think it's like, oh, because you don't have religion, like you are looking for meaning, because for you, if you don't have religion, this is all there is in life, and you kind of become overburdened and distressed by that. And I think when you have higher purpose, you live very differently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's a reason that the most successful countries in human history are like largely Western and of the Christian tradition. I think it is the most conducive to human flourishing and to success. So that is obviously what America was founded on and what we should promote in our institutions. But sadly, we just have a lot of secularism across basically every institution and industry, and it's just pervasive in our culture today. And that's why you're seeing people that are lost and they're looking for that meaning.
And they can't keep culture together. There's nowhere to rally around.
I want to pull up this tweet from Luke Rutkowski. It's actually a quote from Carnivore Aurelius, who is showing a graph, who says, pretty wild. Caloric intake hasn't increased since 1999, but obesity has increased 30%. Something is poisoning our metabolism. Now, what he shows in the chart is the total energy intake on average per person is just above 2,000. So it looks like it's about 2,200 calories per day from 99 throughout every year up until 2018. But obesity starts around, I don't know what this, percent obese starts at around 31% and jumps to 43%. So I don't see obesity didn't increase 30%. That's wrong. And there is a context here added through community notes that says per capita caloric availability has increased substantially. First thing to point out, availability is not intake. This is showing the difference between availability and intake. So availability may have gone up. Intake appears, according to this, from 99 to 2018 to not have gone up that much, but obesity has increased by about 12%, it looks like. So the question is, what is causing people to get so massively fat? And this person said, something is poisoning our metabolism. Luke replies, you're being poisoned and most people don't even know about it. Maybe. But I'm going to throw this in there as well, the internet.
Yeah, I was going to say it's lifestyle, right? I mean, there was this study done that the average human body temperature has gone down by, I think, like a degree or more, which sounds like not that much, but when it's your body, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's because we're not moving around, right? We are sedentary, so our heart rates aren't as high. I mean, calorie is a measure of burning a unit of energy, right? And if you're literally sitting still, you're not burning energy.
I just want to say this, and call it a humble brag, fine. People should brag about these things. So right now, my resting average heart rate is about 48 beats per minute. I went to the hospital for dehydration like a year and a half ago, and they hooked me up, and the alarm started going off. The nurse comes in, and she looks at me, and she goes, "You're an athlete?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she hits a button and walks out. It's insane to me that I'm talking to someone, and they're like, a good resting heart rate is 60. And I'm like, maybe. I'm not a doctor. But, like, I do. Well, I think it's fair to say I do pretty intense cardio every day with skating, like 2 hours of like high heart rate. Fine. But I certainly feel like 60 seems like a lot. People used to walk around and do stuff even 20, 30 years ago. And now they do nothing. I think this is what's driving up obesity.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, what would we do? And I think everybody knows this. You'd be like, I'm going to go to my friend's house. Guess what? You walk there, you ride your bike, you skate. And then even when video games started becoming prevalent, I'd still ride my bike or skateboard or rollerblade or whatever to my friend's house. Then we'd play video games, and then we'd be like, let's go to the candy store. And then we would ride our bikes, and it would be like a mile or back to the candy store. This is crazy. The old guy trope from when we were kids was, I used to walk 50 miles to school every day, uphill in both directions. Now it's like, when I was a kid, we used to ride our bikes a mile to get to the candy store to buy, $5 worth of Laffy Taffy or whatever. But we were still being active. Now what happens is kids wake up, they roll over onto their sides, grab the controller off the floor, press the Xbox button, turning it on. TV automatically turns on with the system. And then they put their earpiece in or their headphones on. They look at their friends list like, what up? And they start playing.
Right. Or think of the effects of virtual school, right? Like if you're in Zoom class all day, I mean, it's not a ton, but if during COVID, you couldn't play sports and you weren't in school. So the time that you have like passing period when you're walking the hallways, that momentary break, if you're just completely online, screen after screen after screen after screen, you're not doing any of that and you don't have any after school activity. I also think that just generally this idea of like, I think all of us do. It's like you work on your laptop, and so you sit for several hours a day. Like that wasn't the majority of the American workforce for years and years and years and years. So we created a lifestyle that's sedentary, and then we had to like introduce ways to combat that, right? In the 1950s, there weren't really the abundance of workout studios, right? Like maybe there were some people that would go to the gym or whatever, but it wasn't the sort of institution for the dink lifestyle they have now. This like dual income, no kids, like, oh, well, how am I going to get to my, Pilates class? Not to knock Pilates or anything like that, but like we lived an active lifestyle, so you didn't have to find ways to supplement being active. I think we just created a culture of convenience that encouraged us to stay still.
Well, I mean, not just encouraged us, but like made moving not unnecessary, and so all of the significant number of the jobs out there are jobs that you sit down to do, people, and when like entertainment, people don't go and do things outside. They play video games very frequently. Like we were talking
more
earlier,
people have cars. You're not walking places.
We were talking earlier how sports are not really something that the Gen Z is interested in anymore, and that's partially because they don't. It's not an activity that they partake in. Never mind, a lot of people that are like jocks that are watching baseball and basketball and stuff. They also play those sports. It's part of the reason that they are interested is because it's an activity they enjoy doing. So the fewer people that are playing active sports, you have fewer people that are getting into that stuff young. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and a lot of it is just the modern society that we live in.
This is why I think the Caitlin Clark stuff is great. Anything that's promoting athletes, I don't care. Like whatever, just like celebrate athletes and get young people to do sports. I was talking about this earlier. Skateboarding is, I was reading one poll. I don't know how scientific it is. 55% of skateboarders are over the age of 30, which means the industry is collapsing. There's not going to be young people to buy products, to watch the content, for parents to support. And so this is going to cause a retraction or a contraction in the industry. And it's not just skateboarding, it's basically everything. And it's partly due to population stagnation, I guess. There's not new people to pick up the industry. But it's not just skateboarding, it's basically all sports are suffering from something like this. And I think the scary thing is, as Phil's saying, like young people don't do sports. They don't go outside. But the one thing I can't say, to all the skateboarders that are left remaining, once everyone's living in the pod and eating the bugs, we can go skate unbothered in the streets without anyone kicking us out. And so, okay, I guess. But it is rather nightmarishly dystopian.
I think too, young people, really young people, don't look up to athletes in the way that they used to. Now they look up to someone, like Kim Kardashian, and they see her on their TikTok feed, and that's who they aspire to be. They want to be an influencer. They don't necessarily want to be a pro athlete. If you went back to, 1980 and you ask kids who they would want to be, they would probably say, oh, NBA, or I want to be, a professional football player, things like that, professional
Nowadays,
baseball
kids
player.
want to be a content creator.
Exactly. Now they want to be a content creator. They want to live the bougie lifestyle that they see on their Instagram feed. And I think that's feeding into a lot of it. And then the food as well. I think what we're consuming is horrible for us.
I absolutely want to call out this chat from Ron Jones, said, Tim is 39 skateboarding, LOL. First, I'm 38. And yes, there's a Mr. Bocas board right behind me. Oh, there it is. And this is the fascinating thing. There is a really high likelihood that Ron Jones is obese, is the guy commenting. And I'm not saying that because I know Ron or that because he is or anything like that. I'm saying the average person is reaching like these 43% in 2018 are obese, meaning if someone said, is Ron Jones obese? I'd be like, I got a coin flips chance that this guy's a fat dude complaining about me exercising. But this is part of it. What is this mentality where there are people online being like, you play sports, I sit around and do nothing? Like, why are you ragging on people who are exercising?
See, I took it as like skateboarders have this like, silly, like people don't take it seriously as a sport. Because if you had been like, oh yeah, I run 5 miles every day. I mean, Chuck Grassley, when he announced he was going to run for re-election, was like, I still run, 4 miles every day, even though I'm 83 years old or whatever it is. Like, I feel like that was a dig at skateboarding that's sort of unfair. Like, at least you're up and exercising. If we had said, you're like, oh, I swim 2 miles every day, people have been like, wow, great, good job.
But it's like, I don't care. I don't care if you're rollerblading. People rollerblade, they get made fun of. Like, why? You're exercising, doing intense cardio, VO2 max, you're exercising. There are people who literally sit around all day. They, on average, don't exercise. They're getting overweight. They're suffering from heart disease. They're getting blood clots. They're getting cancer. And they're going online and they're making fun of people who exercise, whatever the exercise may be. That's crazy. We have to shift this culture around, and we got to go Jack LaLanne, baby. We got to get everybody in their 70s just like doing pull-ups.
Well, we need everyone to get married and have a family and then take them on evening bike rides or take them to the skate park at night. Like, you have to have a culture that is like, we aren't going to go from staring at your screen when you wake up in the morning and then going to your office job where you stare at your screen and then coming home to sit on the couch and stare at another screen while you hold your tiny screen. Like, and this is a joke that I see online a lot, and we're all guilty of it at times. On the other hand, like, we can't just let ourselves fall to the lowest common denominator. We have to strive to be better here.
Remember that viral video of the image of masculinity? It was the guy who was like, a day in my life, and he exemplified all the greatest traits of manliness by going to work, making his lunch, going back to his computer typing, driving home, working out, and they were like, people were shocked, and they're like, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. The dude's married to his high school sweetheart, has his first kid on the way. He's in his late 20s. He exercises every day. He works a stable job, comfortable working at a computer. He's doing everything perfectly. He is the perfect image of like a good person doing what you're supposed to be doing, being responsible, and they lost their minds over it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Why? What was their complaint?
Because
it's traditional.
He's far right.
Oh,
He's
I
an
forgot.
extremist.
It's hard for me to understand because I'm on the watch list for wanting kids.
But this is exactly it. A guy who goes to work with a smile on his face, sits at his computer, cooks his lunch, goes home. He was doing like, what was he doing? Like squats or something and lifting. And they were just like, oh, I'm so terrified of this. How did we get to that point where the guy who's doing like I got to be honest, he's doing the bare minimum. He's doing the minimum requirement of being a good person. He is your average good person. He's starting a family. He's doing all this stuff, and they're attacking him relentlessly. What they want you fat, sick, living in a pod and eating the bugs. I just gotta say, man, like, hey, you do you. You want to live in the pod, eat the bugs. You go ahead. You want your kids living in the pod and eating the bugs.
But they don't want kids.
Fine.
No kids for them.
Yeah, no kids for them. No kids for them. They want your kids living in the pod and eating the bugs, and that should be scary.
Yeah, that's where it becomes like, it goes from being like, look, if you want to poison yourself, if this is a lifestyle you find fulfilling, you don't want to do anything, okay. As soon as it becomes a mandate for everybody else and their children, it's deeply concerning.
None of this stuff is optional according to the left. Like none of there is no room for individuals. It's a collective thing. The whole environmental movement is all a collective thing. And the reason is because they're going to say, oh, well, if you are doing things, then other people are going to do things. So it has to be everybody that's on the same page, etc. And they're after things like your property, your ability to travel and probably conduct business in significant ways. It's a significant amount of control that the government wants. I don't think that people realize how attractive China's system is to Western governments. China's system of control is something that Western governments really, really, really want, because you don't have to. Whereas China does have the option to come down with the boot, they don't have to. They can use control by social credit system, by turning.
They can market it as we're not doing it through force. Obviously, they are.
Exactly. They can go ahead and use what they would consider soft power, or just influence or whatever. The government wants that just as bad. Like, this government wants this as badly as any other government in history would have wanted it. So.
Let's jump to this next story. We got some good news. Prosecutors will not retry the Arizona rancher accused of murder and shooting of trespassing illegal immigrant. The prosecutors have declined to do a retrial. I'm glad to hear it. This guy was on his own property. He has illegal immigrants crossing all the time. He said he heard a gunshot. He went out. There's cartels operating. There's strangers. And he says he fired warning shots. Then I believe they never found a bullet or anything.
They never found the bullet that killed the person who was found dead on his property. They found the casings for the ones that he shot as warnings.
And he said he heard a gunshot.
Yeah, he did.
This guy could have been killed by the cartel, and they tried to lock him up for it. We don't know, but apparently it was 7-1. I think was the
hung jury.
Yeah, and so the prosecutors were like, we're not doing this. Here's what they say. The jurors in the case of George Allen Kelly were not able to reach a decision about the verdict after deliberating more than 2 days. On Monday, the President wrote persecutors. It's prosecutors.
But I mean,
sure, yeah, hey,
same thing.
Actually,
don't correct, just leave it.
Had the option to retry or drop the case. Santa Cruz County Superior Judge Thomas Fink dismissed the case as requested by the prosecution. They say prosecutors argued in the case that Kelly had recklessly fired 9 shots from an AK-47 in the direction of a group of men who were trespassing on his cattle ranch. Kelly's defense was that he fired warning shots in the air but did not aim at anyone. A bullet reportedly hit Quen Buitimia, but it was never recovered. 9 shell casings were found on Kelly's porch, according to court documents. Earlier in the case, the prosecution offered a plea deal to reduce the charges down to a single count of negligent homicide, but Kelly refused. In the defense's closing arguments, attorney Brenna Larkin told the jury that Kelly was confronted with a threat right outside his home. He would have been absolutely justified to use deadly force, but he did not, she added. At the time, Kelly claimed to have heard another gunshot in the testimony the day of the incident. It is insane this guy was even brought on trial. It's a non-citizen illegally entering the country, illegally entering his property, multiple people, cartel activity, murders, trafficking, all of that stuff. A guy on his own property, and they were like, we're gonna try you for murder. That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. We should be giving this guy the Medal of Honor instead of putting him through, our lawfare that we have in this country. It's crazy, too, that they're expending tax dollars, right, to put on this trial. And they're just draining our resources when what they should really be doing is stopping these non-citizens who are illegally crossing into our country.
Look at the danger.
I know. It's crazy.
Okay, so we don't know who killed this guy. Like, it's sad that anybody dies, but when you've got cartels operating on the border, and he says he heard a gunshot. This is an old guy who lives on a ranch who's got no problem.
Like, he was trying to defend his way of making money and his wife. That's the most honorable thing I can think of.
I think, in all seriousness, the Medal of Honor thing, not serious, but I get your point. I think he should be given a cash settlement. I think he should sue the government. I think he should sue the Biden administration for failure to secure the borders.
Right. And
they should be forced to put up a barrier for his property to protect him, because this is insanity that's happening. And there's not really going to be any kind of cash settlement. They're going to say, oh, well, that's on you or whatever. But it's insane that this old man has to deal with this. And then when he's confronted with a crisis on his own property from illegal immigration, he gets put on trial for it.
Right. I mean, I think obviously the only reason they offered him the plea deal was because the state realized how weak their case was. It relied basically on the testimony of a man from Venezuela who had a history of entering the country illegally and bringing drugs into the country, who couldn't even on the stand confirm that Kelly was the shooter, right? And the other part that I found really interesting, I retweeted this video. Reporters were asking him when he was leaving a bunch of questions, and one of them was, are you concerned that in the coming months, in the coming year, people will go to your property, which people publicly know where it is, and protest? And his response was, God will protect me as he always has. Like, there is a level of like faith throughout this whole thing that I find really inspirational. He didn't take the plea deal because he believed that his fellow jurors would give him a fair trial, and that this was he wasn't going to take a plea deal for something that he didn't do. And I find that to be, the kind of justice system that we want in America. I also think if this had happened in a different state, in any sort of blue-leaning state at all, they would have continued to persecute this person. He, by the way, is 76 years old, right? Like, if they were to sentence him to anything in jail, that's life. They are giving him a life sentence no matter what at that age. It's a white pill story for me. And I, again, commend George Kelly for not taking a plea deal when it probably felt a lot of pressure to do so. I mean, they had him on $1 million, they gave him $1 million bail. They wanted this person incarcerated life. They wanted to make a lesson of him. That's what I
What's with these people being so evil?
Right.
That's the thing that bothers me the most, is there are people that are looking to make regular Americans into examples because they don't like the laws that exist, right? So they want to use the law as a way to chill people from exercising their rights, which in this case, it's multiple rights, right? So property rights initially, like right off the bat, it's his property, and there are people that are trespassing, likely a danger, but also the right to defend himself, which is I think that's the core thing that they're attacking here, is the fact that it's the Second Amendment and the right to defend yourself and defend your life. But anytime leftist DAs and stuff like this can attack your individual rights, they take the opportunity. And that alone is something that I find just offensive. Like, you're supposed to be considered innocent until proven guilty. And the government should not have a desire to have a lot of criminals in America. Like, the government shouldn't want to criminalize Americans just for political gain. Like, that's really offensive to what you would consider a free country. The government isn't supposed to be out to get Americans, but honestly, that is so clear that American citizens are the biggest threat to the government, according to the federal government.
And I think this man, too, did the most American thing possible, right? When the government fails to provide you security and safeguards to your life, you have a obligation to take that into your own hands. And a lot of people do. And I think that is something that is uniquely American. And Biden has failed in this instance, obviously, to secure the border. It's been a dereliction of duty. So this man has absolutely every right to defend his life and property when the government has failed to step in and failed to keep him and his family safe.
Not in New York. What did that judge say? That don't bring the Second Amendment up in my courtroom. There is no Second Amendment. Not in New Jersey, where you have a duty to retreat from your own home if someone breaks into your house to try to kill you. This is the craziest thing. And, we talked about it quite a bit, but it bears repeating. What I was told by police in New Jersey is that if someone broke into my house, I would have to jump out the window. And I was like, if you reasonably can, if you can't, you're trapped in the house, then you can defend yourself. And I said, okay, let's say I'm on the second floor, can't jump out the window. What do I do? And they're like, well, then you defend yourself. And I said, what happens next? Okay, well, we arrest you, charge you with felony murder. You go to prison. After a few months of being held in prison, you go to your trial where you can make the affirmative defense that you are defending yourself. You are guilty until proven innocent.
I wouldn't live in a place like that. And
That's
I mean,
why we are not there.
What?
That's why we are not there, and we're now in West Virginia.
I mean, I moved out of Massachusetts a long time ago, and I was in a relationship with someone that I really, really cared about, and I wouldn't move to the state that they lived in, and that was a problem. So that relationship didn't work. Like, I mean, these kind of decisions, like,
serious.
Decide where you live. I mean, granted, I don't have a family that I'm dragging around with me, so that makes it a lot easier. But where you decide to spend your life and set your life up, Those kind of things matter. You know?
The prosecutor in this case, I think during opening arguments said, he just came outside and opened fire without even warning anyone. It makes me crazy. Like, I don't believe the prosecutor's side of this story, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is pretty obvious what happened here. But also the idea that he would have to warn people who are illegally on his property that he's going to fire warning shots into the sky so that they will leave seems crazy to me. Like, why do we make it the burden of the property owner who has been wronged by people who are illegally in our country, illegally on his land? Why are we servicing them more than him? Why does the Biden administration feel like this is the position that they should put law-abiding Americans in?
I'll read one comment here from Petishu. Says, you don't go to prison awaiting trial. You literally do. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yes, if you are a violent offender accused of felony murder, they hold you in prison pending trial. And there are, I can't speak for anything outside of Illinois, to be fair. But Illinois, the way it works, and I assume this is true for most places, local jails are for crimes that are less than a year, and prisons are for crimes that are longer than a year. And that usually means misdemeanors are just shy of a year, and felonies are over a year. I don't know for any other state, but if you commit like a murder, and it is an egregious murder, and there's probable cause, a preponderance of evidence, they will just send you to prison to await trial. Now, you can get bond or bail and things like that in some instances, but yeah, they will literally just lock you up awaiting trial. Maybe it's different in different places, and maybe there's temporary holding facilities or something. Maybe you'd go to jail, but where I was, I think it's probably fair to say, understanding the difference between prison and jail is important. There is no like small, moderate jail in that area where I was in South Jersey, as far as I know. There was a large, actually, maybe there was. Or am I thinking of the one over here? Yeah, maybe there wasn't. There's as an aside, there's a really cool abandoned prison in I think it's in Pittsburgh, or is it in Philly? I don't know, maybe Pittsburgh. Crazy, massive, abandoned prison. Yeah, but anyway, I'll say this. I can't speak for most places. They said you go to prison while you wait for your trial. Maybe they meant county jail, where you're there for 6 or 7 months awaiting your trial or whatever. But fair point, then. I will accept that. Yeah. Either way, this guy was out on bond, though, right?
Yeah, he was.
It's kind of it's nuts, and it was $1 million. What, he had to pay $100,000? Mm-hmm.
And there was a big GoFundMe for him. I mean, I think people really did rally around him from the beginning. I think the idea that like he was trying not, I mean, I know he had a gun, but like he wasn't shooting at anyone. He was shooting to give warning shots, not directed at anyone. He wanted them to go away. And I think the idea that the prosecutors tried to present him as someone who was like aggressive and trying to murder someone, when really I think a lot of people feel, especially a lot of Americans who feel unsafe in their cities as crime goes up, they can look at this story. They may not be a rancher, they may not live in a border state, but they start to say, like, if you can't defend yourself and the people you love and the ways that you are able to support them, then what are we doing here, team? Like, this is something that we need in order to be able to survive. And if you're telling me I can't do that, it's like saying, well, we don't want you to survive. So
there are people who are saying prison, jail, same thing. Some people are saying jail is when they're temporarily holding you. Chicago has the county jail, which is a massive complex where people go for a very long time. And it's probably different from a prison, which has like a yard and exercise and stuff. But I think also states are all different and how they handle these things. But where I was in Chicago, we had the county jail where you typically would go for short periods. Like I know people there, like they were there for several months. And then there was like the prison down in Joliet, which is where if it's longer than a year, that's at least how it was explained to me in my 2-month criminal justice course at College of DuPage.
Because you have some college.
That's right. I intentionally took 2 credit hours or something. I don't even know how many credit hours it was, so that I could put some college. It was fun. Some college on my diploma. We're going to go to Super Chat. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all your friends, tell them how awesome it is, and head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member. YouTube recently took down our 2 biggest episodes. It was an affront.
Bastards.
They claimed that we broke the rules 3 years later, which is a lie. It's insane, and I'm deeply offended. They claimed that we promoted QAnon. And I was livid on the phone talking to Google. I was like, that is an insane accusation. That is defamatory to even state, because we mock the QAnon people. We make fun of the absurd conspiracies. No one promoted that, and they were like, too bad.
I've learned more about QAnon from NPR than I have working here, and I've been here for almost 3 years.
And so I am deeply offended. And they basically said that at any moment they can take down any one of our shows from the past. The entirety. I was like, I have 1,000 episodes on this platform. Should I delete them all? And they're like, no. And they said, we don't know of any others that are breaking the rule. I'm like, yeah, you don't know of any other, but you'll take it down the moment you decide. It's total BS. So follow us at Timcast on X. That's important. And rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Also important. And I think Timcast on Rumble too. And there's like Timcast News. I think it's the same as the YouTube channels. But at Timcast on X is probably where a lot of it's going to be. And also now on Instagram. I don't really ever do anything on Instagram, skate video clips and stuff like this. But I do post the Culture War segments from Tenet Media. And we're going to start putting the Timcast IRL clips up there as well. So follow me on Instagram at Timcast. Basically, we're diversifying everything. And we've got plans moving forward. We're currently talking with some of the top people at various organizations about plans moving forward. We may just end up multi-streaming the show live on multiple platforms. And, we'll see. But, that's why you should become a member, because that's how we fund the entire operation. And, what YouTube basically does for us, and the reason why we only have done the live show on YouTube, and many people have said, why don't you stream on X or Rumble and these other platforms? It's because we typically have the top slot on YouTube, like the top live show for 8 p.m. And that is basically free marketing. And then we generate revenue from them basically algorithmically showing the show. But with them now coming after us, they've basically made that not worth it anymore. And so the issue now is we have to do alternative marketing means and not rely on YouTube. So that means we're probably going to do a big marketing campaign for the first time ever, because we can't rely on YouTube. And it means that if YouTube does decide that we can't stream on their platform anymore, we'll certainly be on Rumble, X, or maybe some other platforms. But that means we have to find a way to maintain the membership base, which funds the show, the staff, the cameras, the lights, the operation, the internet. Internet's super expensive, especially right now. We're streaming at, I think, 7 megabits per second, which is massive. And it can be very expensive. But I will just tell you guys this one thing. It is impossible to actually do this show. If we were to stream this show live on our own website, it would be mathematically impossible to do. The only reason it's possible is because YouTube subsidizes live streams. But understand, with 33,000 live viewers, 7.3 megabits per second, multiply that by 30,000, and that's the output rate, and that kind of money is nuts. So you're basically getting free services by using these platforms. They're hoping to make money off of it, but it is massively expensive. So if you'd like to support our work, become a member at timcast.com. The Uncensored Show will be coming up in 25 minutes. I want to read one super chat, a later super chat before. Normally I go to the beginning, but this one's good. This one's important. Ryan Christman says, Tim, I need help. I'm depressed, not in a good space. Part of me is jealous. Part of me wishes that I could be in a blank space, because what I would just do is I would grab a couple of weights. I would go to the park. I would do basic exercise. I'd lift a little bit. I'd enjoy the fresh air and just lay there and look up at the sun and in the clouds. I wouldn't stare at the sun like Ian. No sun gazing. That's very bad. I would not recommend that. But my best recommendation for you is go out, find a park, and start exercising. You don't even really need weights to begin. You can do some light sit-ups. You can do push-ups. You can download the app, MyFitnessPal, I think it is. Track your macros. And MyFitnessPal. And also it has workout routines where there's like actual instructors, and you can open the app and watch a video and do the workout. And don't care about anybody. Mind your own business. Enjoy yourself. But I do believe exercise, correct me if I'm wrong, but exercise is typically a cure for depression. Mm-hmm. Not all depression. Some are hormonal or chemical imbalances that you got to talk to a doctor about. But some typical depressions from social issues can be exercise really, really does help. And that's about it. Just start improving yourself, eating right, tracking what you're doing for yourself. I think that a lot of depressions probably can be cured if you eat clean, Today I had lean ground turkey, brown rice, and it was ground turkey with onions and cheddar cheese, and brown rice made by Allison. She makes the best. And this time we used Not a Damn Chance spicy chicken from Neen Williams, pro skater. He's also got that burger shop in Austin that's going massively viral, and he did like some helicopter campaign with Red Bull. It's kind of crazy to see this all going down. But they made like a smash burger restaurant that just like went massively viral. Mm. But mix a little bit of that in, and very, very clean eating. I think that will dramatically improve your disposition. But depending on what's causing the depression, you might need a friend, therapy, a doctor. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really tell you. I certainly think working out is a good place to start, though, so I'd recommend that. As Phil says, lift heavy thing makes sad voice go away.
That's right. It's a good idea. It's good for you.
Make sad voice. What is it? Make sad voice stop or?
Make sad voice end usually, or something like that.
Yeah. The first super chat was from Token Black Guy. He said, "Howdy, people." Whoa, not from Clint. Wow.
Clint, are you okay? What is happening?
He's not here. Kale says, "Love to hear y'all's thoughts on the Title IX lawsuit. South Carolina, Georgia, Florida filed against the Biden administration. Didn't West Virginia say something about that too?
Yeah, I think they filed.
They were like,
Texas
we're
did
ignoring.
too.
Yeah, like we're ignoring this. This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yo.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think this is what we want to see, right? People saying this doesn't make any sense and you can't just delete and erase women or mold women to be an inclusive term when you want it to be. I don't understand why more women aren't angry about this. I don't understand why they roll over and take the like, it's you guys and the trans people as well. It seems crazy to me.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the transgender inclusion into Title IX is getting, I would say, the most conservative media coverage. But Biden also did a lot for sexual assault cases on campuses, like just totally removed due process.
Which was
from
installed
the
under the
accused.
Trump administration.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't do things like cross-examine witnesses now. You can't ask harassing questions. Like those are literally the standards. So it's absolutely insane.
What is a harassing question?
Exactly. So another component of this is more of this weaponization of the law and of our judicial process. You're just basically having to go before a kangaroo court in a sense. So there's lots of layers to this Title IX EO, and they're all bad.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is Biden's got the largest tax increase in history. It's like 44 or 45% capital gains plus a 25% unrealized gains tax.
I
I don't get the unrealized gains thing. How can you tax that?
So I'll tell everybody how this is impacting the world right now. So we work with a bunch of different companies. We have deals that are being negotiated all the time for various reasons, advertising, etc. And one of them involved equity. And I was talking to my lawyer, and he was just like, "Yeah, I don't know if you want to consider this deal because the Biden administration is basically saying if they enact this, your compensation package will be zero. I mean, like 25% unrealized gains plus 44% capital gains on your business, on you." He's like, this is gonna be less than half of what they're offering you. You got to negotiate something else. This value is not going to cut it. And so, without even enacting this, already, I was laughing because I'm like talking to my lawyer, and I'm like, really? I was like, I just did a segment on this, talking about it, and this means that right now there are businesses. There may be a business where they say, you got the CEO and he goes, "Okay, look, we're going to do a partnership with your company selling this product, and in exchange, you're going to get 10 cents for every product sold. We're going to do a marketing pitch, but along with this, we're like you grant us X amount of compensation for our services in equity." And a lot of deals happen this way. And now they're going, "Nope, deal's done. Can't do it. If Biden gets elected next year, we lose everything. That'll put us in the red, and we lose money on the product sold, so we can't cancel the deal." Like that stuff is already happening just because Biden says he plans to do it. It's the unrealized gains tax that's absolutely insane. If you get awarded equity in any kind of compensatory package, the first thing that happens is, let's say someone gives you $100 in equity of like $100 worth of shares in a company. So let's say it's 100 shares. You owe taxes on the value of those shares, even though you don't have the money. So you have to pay out of pocket to cover the cost. If you receive $100 of anything in value, whatever it may be, if someone gives you a $100 gift card, you owe taxes on that gift card. When you receive stock or something, you'll have to sell the stock to pay the taxes on it. Unrealized gains on top of this means after you sell a portion to then pay the taxes, if the next, by the end of the year, it's gone up, you got to pay 25% out of pocket on the increased value of the asset and then sell more of it. So this is basically destroying equity trades between businesses and compensation packages.
Yeah.
That means that potential jobs are being smashed already.
Your average person that hears this not average person, but a lot of people that hear this are going to think, oh, this doesn't affect me or whatever. But it's going to affect significantly all kinds of 401ks, right? Right now, I think the capital gains tax is 15%. If it goes up to 44%, a 19% increase or whatever, like people that are on fixed incomes are going to have 20% of the income that they are planning on living on. 20% of that is going to come right off the top.
I'll tell you this. Let's say you're on you got a 401k. Let's say you have a broker and you're investing. If this rule goes into effect, you will lose 30, 40% maybe. Why? What's going to happen? There's going to be a whale who's got maybe $10 million tied up in some company, Berkshire Hathaway or something, and they're going to say, I don't want to spend 44% capital gains, and I don't want to spend 25% unrealized gains. I can't hold these assets. I need different assets. What do I do? They're going to sell their stock, and they're going to try and find other means of investing to get away from that. And then all of a sudden, the things you're sitting on as a small retail investor or someone who's just got a retirement account watches the whole thing collapse as the whales sell off massive portions because they can't afford the unrealized gains. But it's not even that. Let's say no one sells. They're like, no, it's fine. Okay, then tax time comes and all the whales go, okay, I got to pay 25% on a $10 million gain. So I have to sell, X amount of shares to cover that. Boom. Stock value collapses. Who does it hurt? All of the small people, all the retail investors, all the retirement accounts. So that's just going to drop the market. It's almost like Biden's intentionally trying to destroy the country. It's insane. All right, we'll read more. Shane H. Wilder says, Pop Culture Crisis celebrated 600 episodes today. They had some great pop culture news, cast member appearances, and a meme review. Support all the Timcast shows. Shout out to Pop Culture Crisis. You should subscribe there, popculturecrisis.com. Live on YouTube, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Brett Dasovic and Mary Morgan host it, and then there's rotating guests and Timcast crew who appear on the show. It's very similar to the structure of this show, but it's mostly pop culture, entertainment, and other cultural issues. But they've taken off. They got over 100K subs. They're getting like 1,300 to 1,500 concurrent viewers on every episode. They're getting like up to 10K on their clips. So
they've been going for a couple years now, really consistently.
Yeah. Well, we want to do a big ad thing for them on YouTube, but it never happened. But I think we're going to do that now. We just had a meeting with them about building their new studio and everything. So super excited for Pop Culture Crisis. It's going to be fun. All right. Big 7588 says, Step 1, restart the draft, including females. Step 2, everybody gets the choice of civil service with training or military service with training. Step 3, nation is fixed. I think we can solve a lot of this nation's problems by simply saying, you can only vote if you signed up for selective service. That's it. Not a single liberal would do it. They'd say nope.
Yeah.
Every conservative would be like, okay. They'd be like, it's a choice. You don't have to sign up for it. We haven't had a draft in 50 years. That's it. If you don't want to pledge that you will stand up for this country in a time of crisis, don't vote. You get all of your other rights. You can work, you can live, you can buy property, just everything. But no voting. No voting. Men and women combined.
I think there has to be a civic component that you should want to buy into this situation and be a part of it with us, as opposed to just living off the benefits and voting for things that could affect other people who are willing to serve for the country.
Rolo says, hey, Tim, thanks to you, I got my girlfriend on a public square. Please give her a shout out at Savannah Rose Paintings. She's an amazing artist. Go check her out. She does commission works too. Y'all should be downloading Public Square, an app where it shows all the businesses in your area that support American values so you know where to spend your money. Why are you going to have dinner at that one woke restaurant? You didn't know they were woke? Well, maybe they're not, maybe they are. But you go on Public Square, you look at the map, And you can see there's a restaurant 2 blocks down that have said, by being on the app, we believe in the family, we believe in free speech, we believe in this country, and you can give them your money. And then we can build a parallel economy that way. Shout out to Flip Skateboards and AWH Distribution, a skateboarding distribution company. They're on Public Square. Absolutely impressed by that. All right. Brown Bear 992 says, Tim, did you ever get a chance to look at that unplugged phone Eric Prince was selling? I have one. We have 2, actually. They're too good. They're too good of phones. Yeah.
What do you mean?
So you can't copy things over. You've got to start fresh and use them for secure purposes. And they do exactly as intended. So what this means for me, business-wise, I use my phone for a lot of Google services because of the company. So not a good phone. The unplugged phone is basically, you want to avoid being spied on and tracked by Google. It does exactly that. So impressive. It's got a physical kill switch. Yeah.
Wow.
It's got a switch you can flick that disconnects the battery. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Just the fact that it has a battery that can be taken off and you can actually turn the power off and be sure that the power is off is fairly impressive.
I don't know if you can remove the battery. It's got a physical switch that disconnects.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. You might be able to, but I'm not sure. It's like, I'm impressed with it. It's they built their own phone. Yeah, it's good. But, that being said, you can't use Google and other stuff. You might be able to, but I don't think you can copy anything over for obvious reasons. Yeah. So if you're getting it, you want to make sure that you're starting clean and you will get what you pay for with that device. It is secure. As far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going into the code or anything. All right, let's go. Let's see. What is this? Jurassic Park says, can you wish my friend Andrew a happy birthday? He's a big All That Remains fan and an even bigger Hannah Claire fan.
Aww. Phil, we can start our band and this guy would come to our shows. Phil said I couldn't be the lead singer of his band today. It was very rude.
I said that. It was true.
It's fair. I'm a terrible singer. Happy birthday, Andrew.
Happy birthday. She's also like, hey, I want to be the lead singer. Like literally telling me that she wants my job. Like,
but the thing is, Phil knows. Phil can tell by my high-pitched nasally voice that he's not threatened.
To be fair,
I can't sing.
She didn't ask. She went to Phil and she said, I'm taking your job, Phil. I'm coming for you.
She said it.
I bully Phil on
And then
occasion.
she did this real low, like, throat growl. And we were all impressed.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I work in such a supportive environment. Phil won't give me his job. It's crazy. No, I could never do what you do. That sounds very difficult.
Dillybod says, war is natural, peace is not. We are animals. It's human nature. Oh, to be blissfully childish, like Tim and Luke living in a utopian ideal of humanity. Freedom is dangerous, peace is slavery. What are you talking about? I don't think you've listened to me or Luke. Luke's doing gun training all the time. And he's like, gotta protect yourself. And I'm talking about living buck naked in the woods with a pointy stick and constantly having to struggle. And us living, we've done full culture war shows about how we live in this isolated bubble, which has removed people from their understanding of survival.
He's just talking smack. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Utopian. Peace is slavery. I think peace is a good thing.
Kidding
but
me.
war happens. Yeah, that's the sad reality of war, man. We were talking on, I think it was Culture War. Someone was saying something like, why can't we just stop fighting and then we'll get along and, we don't need to go to war and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, and then if you were the leader of a nation, or, it wasn't on the show, actually. I was talking to someone and I said, if all hell broke loose, the apocalypse happened, and stores were shut down, there was no electricity, and there was no like running water and stuff. You're in your house, your husband has like the door barricaded, and then you start getting sick, and he realizes you've got a blood infection and you're on the verge of going septic. The neighbors have antibiotics. He's not asking. Mm-hmm. He's not going to go knock on the door politely and say, might I borrow some antibiotics? He's taking those antibiotics, any means necessary, and he's giving them to you. That's the problem with war. There's bad people who are like, I want to steal from other people. And then there are leaders who are like, if we don't increase our water supply by 7% in the next year, people will die. And so then he looks to his neighboring country and says, we need that water source. That's it. Then you get war. Ain't no solving that problem.
Yeah, I think it's resources and also shared values. Like, communities that have shared values can have peace. There'll probably be minor conflicts between people, but not to an extreme level. It's when people fundamentally want opposing things. How would you reconcile that without some kind of conflict?
Even shared values. If you have two good Christian families next to each other and the world is ending and one guy's wife is dying, he is no longer going to share any values with those people. He is going to take those antibiotics to save his wife, and he's going to say, that's just it. You can believe in everything, and he's going to say, Lord, forgive me, as he takes it from him. Mm-hmm. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Just Me says, check out Carolina Coops for your new Chicken City. Best coop you can buy. Yeah, the new design's going to be fun. We want to make sure it's more camera friendly. The thing about Chicken City now is that it was built around this structure we have. There was when they built the house, the castle, there were extra parts. So they put together this little cabin. And then we finished the cabin, made it nice, put a carpet and a TV and stuff in there. But this was basically a cooled room that could operate the computer to run Chicken City. The Chicken City we build now is going to have its own server room. So it's not just a chicken coop we're building. We're building a chicken coop with a server room. But we do miss the chickens dearly. We did have Cocktown here for a while, but all those roosters got eaten. Fabio escaped the predators and survived. Roberto the King is now King Regent, and he also survived, but all the rest of them, not so good. All right, we'll grab some more super chats. Tanner Burrow says, am I naive? My wife brought up the bear or men in the woods scenario. I said bear, and she was shocked. She's convinced a wild beast is safer to be around than a man. She's a stay-at-home mom. What is TikTok doing to my wife? Help. What is the bear in the woods scenario?
I've seen this all day, all over my feed, and I have not looked into it. But I assume it's would you rather be with a bear or with a man in the woods alone?
I think
that's what it is.
Which one is more dangerous?
Right. Yeah.
I actually don't find it surprising that his wife thinks that a man is more dangerous than an animal in the woods. Number one, women love animals. And number two, I think actually women fear men or view them as dangerous in a way that men can't, obviously because of some of the attacks that a man could levy on a woman. That being said, both, the bear obviously does seem bad. But again, I think it's a gendered thing. I think men fear other men on some level, but also they expect to be able to be challenged by them. I think most women know, if a man were to attack you, it would be very difficult to defend yourself. You're not really thinking the bear will do, the bear you could probably scare off.
So it's this TikTok woman apparently saying that she'd rather her little girl be in the woods with a bear than a man.
That's stupid.
And all the women, the feminist women, are agreeing, which is crazy to me.
I told my friend who's considers herself a feminist, I said, listen, the thing about feminists that are actually activists is they think that all men are either the president or their dad. Right? Mm-hmm. There are no men that are just the garbage man to activist feminists. There are no men that are just average men. They're always these super powerful. They're fighting against this imaginary man that has been the oppressor forever, but they don't think of actual real men and actual reality for men.
Right. They're blind to the men they run into day to day.
Yeah, they think those aren't even men. Those are just those aren't even people, right? The only people that are people to them are the people that actually are oppressing them, stopping them from doing things. All the people that actually make their life possible, they don't even exist.
Yeah, I'm confused by what he's saying. He says, my wife brought up the bear or man in the woods scenario. I said bear, and she was shocked.
I have no idea what that is.
I don't know.
No, but he's saying...
Is he saying...
He chose the bear.
The bear is more dangerous.
No, he's saying... The question is, would you rather be in the woods, left alone in the woods with a bear or a man? And he said bear.
That doesn't make sense.
I'm confused.
But
But then he said, she's convinced a wild beast is safer to be around than a man. So
yeah, so he's saying that the bear's...
He said...
So lost.
Right, so I think he wrote this incorrectly.
I think he wrote it wrong.
I think he's saying his wife said it's safer to be around a bear than a man.
I think too, women have for some reason stopped viewing men as protectors. My thought would be, I want to be with the man in the woods because he can protect me from whatever we will encounter, perhaps a bear.
Well, but hold on. Context matters. You didn't say if I was friends with the bear or not. Now, if someone said, "Who would you would you rather be left alone in the woods with a man or a bear?"
Do the bears have a house and porridge?
No,
what are we doing?
when I first heard this, I was like, the bear, because my thought was like a trained bear companion that is with me in the woods. Like I've seen those videos,
like as your protector, kind of.
or it's just like I raised a bear from a very young age and it's walking around with me in the woods. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I assumed in both scenarios, either the man or the bear is some sort of threat or aggressive person. But you're right. Like, if you're just in the woods, I'd obviously rather be with a man. But like where I grew up, we would have, there's a lot of nature and woods and stuff. And we would have bears on occasion. I remember running on a trail and like running up, and there was like a bear walking the way, and you just like go the other direction. Like in some ways, the bear theoretically could be less conflict. Whereas if there was a man who was like chasing you through the woods, like, it's not going to lose interest or decide to go back to its cubs the way the bear might.
See, I think you got to give context.
This question is really making us think.
I never heard this scenario, whatever it is. So it's like, would you rather be in the woods with a man? Would you rather be left alone in the woods with a man or a gun? Which one?
Gun.
Probably a gun.
Oh, but guns are so dangerous.
See, I feel like I'd still pick the man.
It'll be my gun, though.
Right?
But that's the issue.
with.
That's the context of how I hear this question. It's like, you're saying that I will be with my friend Bill or my pet bear? Like, I could go either way, I guess. I mean, maybe the bear is kind of hard to control once it gets hungry or something. But
is it like a female bear and you're in between her and her cubs?
That's not the question. The question is...
The question is very open-ended.
You are being left in the woods, meaning someone in a vehicle is bringing you and either a man or a bear into the woods to leave you there. And it's just like, I suppose the assumption is it's a random guy and a random bear, then obviously the man. You know what I mean? But that's the point of the question. There's no context to what that means. If I'm being left alone in the woods with my pet bear, I'd probably be like, okay.
Then like a random guy,
Yeah. I'll take my pet bear.
Again, like in this scenario, are we assuming both the man and the bear are aggressive or provoked or trying to attack you?
We're not assuming either.
This is the thing. It's too open-ended to answer.
Yeah. That's why I asked would you rather be left in the woods with a man or a gun? Because it changes the context of, well, the guy is clearly being left with you. He's your friend, or he's a companion, or he's a helper,
right.
Or it's a gun, a tool. You ask it that way, and it's like, would you rather have a guy with you or a gun with you? When asked that way, it's more like the guy is there to help you. So that's an interesting question. If you were going to be left in the woods, would you rather be there with your friend, a guy, or armed with a gun?
What would you guys pick?
Oh,
I want to know specifically what the men would say.
Person.
You pick person? I would pick person too.
I think I would pick person too, because like survival is so much easier with two hands versus like you can do so much more. Like they can secure food while you're building shelter and like
and
can keep an eye for bears that may or may not come in and out of the scenario.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, get in that Discord server, hang out with those like-minded individuals to build culture. There's a lot of extra content in the Discord server. They're doing after shows, they're doing pre-shows, and of course, the members-only uncensored call-in show is starting in just a few minutes on timcast.com, so you don't want to miss that. If you sign up at the $10 per month level for 6 months, you can then submit questions and actually call into the show, or skip the line. Sign up at $25 per month right now, and you can submit questions. We've already taken the questions, and then what happens is the Discord community actually votes on which questions they want to get answered, which is really amazing. So it's not like we make the editorial decisions, but then you could sign up, and then tomorrow you could be asking questions. The reason we do either 6 months or $25 is a screening process, so the weirdos and the activists don't come in and be disruptive. But support the show. And follow the show at Timcast on X, at Timcast on Instagram, and rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Kingsley, do you want to shout anything out?
Please follow me, Kingsley Wilson, on all of the platforms. Great to join you guys tonight.
Right on.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. So I have some big news as of this Friday. We are going to be debuting our new single for a song called Divine. We're going to do it. We're going to do it here on Timcast on the after party, or at the after show. We'll do it on Wednesday night, because they're going to start debuting it on Octane, on Liquid Metal on Sirius XM. They're going to start debuting it on Tuesday, and then it debuts on Friday. You can go ahead and go to my Twix account. The pinned tweet is the link to go ahead and pre-save into your Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, the whole 9 yards. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on all of those things, and Instagram at All That Remains.
So what night we're on the after show. We're gonna debut
Wednesday. We'll play the video. I'll make sure you guys got a link. We'll play the video on the after show for the Timcast people. Then on Thursday, on Sirius Liquid Metal, they'll be playing the song on like hourly, every hour.
So we're doing the public debut of the song?
Just for the Timcast ones.
It's
we're going to do it here.
exclusive.
Because I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to give you the link. And be like, we're going to play it for the...
But you're saying before it's released, we're going to play the video first?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited.
We'll bring it. We'll do it here for the...
This song's so good.
Just for the
I heard
Timcast
it a year
viewers.
ago or whatever.
It's been a long time, dude. I'm dying. So just for members. So if you guys sign up and you want to check the video out, we'll play it for the members on Wednesday night. Thursday, you'll be able to listen to it on Sirius XM. Friday, it will go ahead and populate into your Spotify or whatever. Like I said, the link is at the top of my Twitter, my Twix page, my Twitter page, and also this August and September, we're going to be on the road on the Destroy All Enemies tour with Megadeth and Mudvayne. Starts August 2nd in Arkansas, ends September 28th in Nashville. So. Busy. So Hannah Claire.
This is a busy summer for you,
You know,
Phil.
it's been a long time. We haven't released any music in 5.5 years, so it's a big deal. It's our first release with Jason Richardson, so I'm super excited, and I'm also nervous. I want people to hear it. I think
it's your best song.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
dude.
it. So
I'm excited. This is so cool. You guys should definitely all become members before Wednesday because otherwise you don't get to be part of the cool screening thing. Kingsley, it was so fun to see you. I love when you're here. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. You can follow all of our work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to fix this eventually, but I'm HC Brimmel on Twitter, and I'm HannahClaire.b on Instagram. Bye, Serge.
See you there, Hannah Claire. Bye, guys.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out.